Let's talk about the ramifications of this fake evidence. The prosecution won a major victory when they were able to get the judge to instruct the jury on provocation. If you believe that Kyle Rittenhouse provoked the attack, then he must have exhausted all means of retreat. Otherwise, it is not self-defense. I think it's something to that effect. And if they didn't have this video footage with that argument about him pointing the weapon, there would have been no provocation instruction. The jury would have been told he was attacked. If you believe he acted in self-defense, acquit. Here's what we got from Newsmax. And I don't know if this is true, but this is Newsmax reporting. A Newsmax source reports they overheard Kyle Rittenhouse's attorney saying that he believed the jury is at a 6-6 split. Mike Carter reports from the courthouse in Kenosha. It could be a hung jury. We've already heard rumors. Jack Posobiec said he had a source claiming that there were 2 holdouts. That he said, 10 people were in agreement, 2 were holding out. That could mean that 10 wanted to convict. It could mean that 2 didn't. It could mean that 10 wanted to acquit and 2 didn't. We don't know for sure. But one thing that's interesting is that the defense made a verbal motion for mistrial, straight up mistrial. That would mean Rittenhouse would be tried again. We mentioned this the other day. Cernovich said it's an advantage for the defense. They'll get to do this whole thing over knowing exactly what the state has. And here's what people have missed. If everything I said about Krause and the manipulation of this evidence is true, it'll get thrown out. And the state will have no opportunity to present that. Furthermore, if Krause did do something untoward, he could get in serious trouble, and the case may actually, something beyond a retrial may happen if it turns out that they did something malicious. It could actually, it might not be with prejudice, but it may actually create a political pressure where they can't retry Kyle Rittenhouse. So, if we're looking at a hung jury, and the defense is like, okay, we're gonna get a do-over. Let's add a verbal motion for mistrial. What people need to know is the judge has both motions to consider. The judge could rule either way. It's just more options for the defense.
I keep thinking about how the jurors are coming in on a bus where they can't see anything, but they hear people screaming at them. The people outside know who. It's like if you're led into a courthouse blindfolded and people all around you are screaming at you as you're walking in. How horrifying and mind-twisting that would be. And then to have to decide the fate of basically the people outside as well, the people that are screaming at you.
Well, someone's decision's going to weigh on, if I rule this way, will there be consequences and other people hurt because of the way I rule? So that's also another aspect that we have to consider here when we have these kind of egregious cases of people trying to take photos of them, people following them, the people screaming outside of them. So there's a lot to play into this. But what did the judge rule? Because I know the defense said mistrial with prejudice. Then they reached for mistrial without prejudice. What was his kind of understanding of this? Did he decide on it, or did he say, I'm going to wait until the jury comes out?
The first time the defense made a verbal motion for mistrial with prejudice, the judge said, I'll take it under advisement. And then he basically was like, if there's one more violation, you guys watch yourself. They made a formal filing for a motion, mistrial with prejudice. We didn't hear anything about that from the judge. The verbal motion for mistrial, the judge basically said, I'm going to wait till the jury comes back with a verdict and we'll see. Excuse me. Hiccups.
I'm really curious here, like maybe like anyone's opinion on like what's the impact going to be? Is there any way that this can go where the impact of what's happening in Kenosha would be different? Do you think it's just going to escalate no matter what?
Yep.
Well, you got the mainstream media putting fuel on the fire. You got the mainstream media screaming, going crazy, trying to make this a race issue when it's not. You got the mainstream media, corporate media, as Malice would call them, literally fanning the flames here in every instant, just like they did last summer.
Yeah.
So with that happening, I mean, people were guaranteeing that something's going to happen. We don't know exactly, but the conditions that created previous civil unrest are there for this current period. Now, there's different times. We're not going through the summer. The summer is usually the hot period where there is a lot of civil unrest. But there are memes going around showing Ron Paul at the Federal Reserve disguising it with a Nike store, saying that this is a meme. This is not a real image, but it's a meme saying that he hopes that during rioting season, people will target the Federal Reserve and think it's a Nike store.
Oh,
but so there's already...
Wasn't there a Babylon Bee article about that or something?
I believe so.
He's got a
Yeah,
nice
Paul's
but
smile
like,
on his
oh
face.
no, what have the writers done?
I've seen the meme, and I have to share the meme because it hit home to what's really going on here. But who knows what's going to happen here? The conditions are there. We can only hope and do our best to try to provide a reasonable side of the story, to try to provide some kind of explanation that will decrease the risk of violence and escalation. But the escalation has been there. It's significant, and I think it's only going to get even more
The
significant
judge
from here.
should have declared a mistrial with prejudice immediately, because what people have been saying and what the judge is saying is, he's going to wait for the verdict. If it's a not guilty verdict, then the rulings are irrelevant. The problem is, then the prosecution goes, we got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
We tried our best. We cheated to our heart's content, but we didn't win. And that means they could do it again. Now, there's also the potential warning that if a guilty verdict, if a guilty verdict does come in, the judge could be like, mistrial with prejudice, blame the prosecutors.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, there's a story. There's definitely a story. No matter which way this swings, there's a story to escalate it. I feel. I think it was Catherine Austin Fitts. She did some research on the 2020 riots alone, and she said, I may get the numbers wrong, but 35 out of 37 of the main parts of the damage done to infrastructure was done right around, maybe within a quarter or a half mile of a central bank. And her whole theory, again, this is just her theory, saying that, this is exactly where they're going to build up the smart grid. So I don't know. I'm not going to press on that one, but I love when I hear people outside the box investigation being like, I'm just going to look at what else there is around all these spots that seem to be unnecessarily damaged.
What is a smart grid exactly?
Well, a smart... So the Internet of Things.
Well, it's part of their 2030 plan for all major urban cities to be digitized and to be run through a kind of sorry I cut you off that, but to be run through a kind of centralized grid.
So it's totally centralized,
Yeah.
and it's the device. Over in China, I think Robert Spalding was talking about this in his I forget what book, Stealth Wars or something like that, but he was saying over in China, there's not even the need for the device anymore because there's so many cameras and microphones that the very next step is you walk out your door and you say Uber. It acknowledges who you are by your voice or where you're standing and the camera, and it comes by and picks you up and you're in the device.
Yeah.
So the smart grid is definitely what Luke was saying about it's creating the Internet of Things everywhere. And mind you, smart dust was being talked about in 2000 going into pavement, and it's already there in Denver.
Now
in the roads.
that's a big rabbit hole. But also in China, if you jaywalk, they take a photo of you. You don't need to show your identification. You don't need to report to anyone. They take a photo of you, and a fine automatically is deducted from your bank account, and you get a notification on your phone. You've been punished for jaywalking on this street,
Holy
and we took this
moly.
money out of your bank account. That's the smart grid. Smart dust. You're taking us down the rabbit hole. I like this, Ben. Finally, we're getting we're getting started here. I like this. 'Cause
Alison
this
McDowell.
this is down the rabbit hole stuff that I think we need to go down into.
I'll just say this. Alison McDowell, is talking about where we're moving is total gamification. By 6G, everyone will have up to 12 digital twins, so avatars, and all connected to this thing called the Sentient World Simulation, which is if you've seen the last season of Westworld, it's basically a digital mirror of this world, but in real time. And I forget what their prediction was, but when it gets to Minority Report level, where it can start predicting people's actions, what groups you'll end up in, what stores you'll end up at, when, why, where, those types of
this
things.
is the digitization of everything. This is Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse,
Yes,
but in
yes.
real life. And this is how they're going to do it. You're going to be in the pod, eating the bugs, living in the society where they will track, trace, and database every aspect of your existence to the nanoparticle of smart, intelligent dust and microchip particles that will be in charge of controlling every aspect of your human existence.
So
colonization all the way down to our biology. Just look up International Barcode of Life and see who some of the main donors to that. Thank you, Mr. Gates.
Yeah, Mr. Bill Gates. I was just going to say, Gates.
So hold on. So this is a big segue, right? We're talking about a potential hung jury in a criminal trial, and now we're talking
dust,
about
coincidence.
Sorry, I
theory.
just got off. I went off.
We
the
go
rails
Well,
there.
you guys just blasted off.
Yeah, we had to.
But
I'm
hold
sorry.
on.
All at
But I have a question. I mean, are you saying that you think that the riots and all the destruction we've seen is somehow tied to I'll just put it simply. I mean, I think it's fair to say an attempt to gain more control politically over people's lives. And I think if you walk back from the smart dust stuff, the stuff that's kind of freaky for people to understand, and you said something like, why is the police stand down in a lot of the riots? Why is it that the media promotes them? Why did Kamala Harris fundraise for them? The violence scares people and triggers a response where they say, give us more money to keep you safe.
Yeah, I'm just theorizing here. I've been looking into this. I think last time we talked about Agenda 2020, Agenda 2030, and everything like that. I personally feel like you've talked about Davos, you've talked about World Economic Forum. The whole idea is moving from stakeholder capitalism to shareholder, or maybe it's the other way around, shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism. You need an excuse to radically not just homogenize world economies and bring them all together under one, but you need an excuse, a public-facing excuse. So to me, and this is yet again another thing that Catherine Austin Fitts says, is like, invisible threats are great. You can call terrorism for one, and you can't tell who's the terrorist. It could be anyone. It could be your neighbor. Be very suspicious of your neighbors, type of thing. The
COVID.
Exactly. And so the idea about it is again, this is just a theory, but I definitely feel that Davos wants to succeed in this great reset. And so the forward-facing, what's the excuse? How do we tell the future generations why this whole thing went down? I'm not saying that what's happening right now is fake, and I'm not saying that anything along those lines, but opportunizing this
never
whole
let
thing.
a good crisis go to waste.
Exactly. And so to me, I absolutely feel that this needs to be spun in this direction. And I'll just take it back to what I said about the Kyle Rittenhouse case and why it's so iconic is because it's a 17-year-old with a rifle in front of small businesses, which are being, I think I saw a woman today saying, I run a shop in Kenosha. 50% of shops have been shut down. Small businesses shut down. They never reopened. A lot of them are moving out of the area. There's something happening. If you like to call it all a coincidence, that's fine. I personally don't mind taking several leaps of faith in order to at least think of what it could be. What could be happening, because you'll never get the full story.
I don't like the big conspiracy stuff. I think it gets too grandiose and it makes too many assumptions. And I think there's actually some evidence to suggest this is definition, never let a good crisis go to waste. And that is, when the COVID stuff first started, you were not allowed to talk about it on social media. It was the craziest thing. When the first news came out of Wuhan of the weird stuff, I made some videos on YouTube. YouTube didn't notice, didn't care. But then there was this period where they were like, you cannot talk about this. You'll be demonetized. And they were exerting pressure on channels that were actually saying, hey, there's an outbreak. I think initially that the establishment was like, this is panic stuff. We don't want anyone talking about this. And then once it hit, and the establishment politicians were like, wait. We can use this. We can use the crisis. 15 days becomes 2 years. Then all of a sudden YouTube's like, actually, we're going to allow you to start talking about it. And then, truth be told, when the more and more videos start popping up about it, the fear spreads, and it allows a lot more corrupt politicians and powerful CEOs, big pharma corporations to be like, now's our chance to use fear to gain power. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.